What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Spencer taking a look at the new ban list that came out. When I saw it, I was like, I thought it was one of those fake Twitter accounts. I had to do a double take because it just seemed so random. And especially when I saw the Mystic Mind ban, I'm like, oh yeah, this is like a fake Yu-Gi-Oh account. But no, this is it. This is a real emergency ban list. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's an early one. I don't think anyone was expecting this, as far as I know. But I'm not going to do anything over the top. I don't like to do the heavy reactions for the ban list because I don't really care either way, one way or another. So we'll just go through them and I'll give them my thoughts. So seeing Mystic Mind ban is so good. So this like top 3 straight YCSs and then Tearlaments came out and it kind of just dipped a little bit from favor. We saw it in some Fluent Rees decks. That was like one of their big going second cards because the deck plays really well around the Mystic Mind, which is pretty good for them. But just thank goodness, man. I mean, an anti-play Yu-Gi-Oh card, and everyone's talking, casual players like, oh, this is the only card that helped me compete against the 15 negate boards. But I don't care. I'm just going to say that right now. Do not care. This card sucks. Never liked it. It's awful. And just thank goodness you don't have to play around this card anymore. It's so bad. You just had to put bad cards in your deck in case someone had it, or else you just auto lost, and so many other things. And speaking of old cards that don't seem to be making impacts anymore, Curious, this one is pretty cool because like you're kind of future proofing it. It's just a little too wild being able to dump anything. But if they're gonna ban Curious, which isn't even used in Tearlament cards or decks anymore, why would you not also ban Beatrice, which does essentially the same thing, except now they just make Beatrice instead of Curious? That's a pretty wild thing to do. Because the idea of their banning is like, oh, it's bad to Foolish Burial anything from your deck. Like Laval Chain is also banned. Okay, well, Beatrice is like easier to make than Curious is. So why would they do that? Why would they do that? I'm not sure. So I guess I'm happy about it. It's just one of those things like Union Carrier. It just can't be around too long because it's just too crazy. But it's actually unfortunate for the Slife of the Sky Dragon deck, thinking back now. Because that's like the only way to trigger the new trap consistently is to go through Curious. So that Sacred Beast engine, RIP in peace, because it will probably never be used ever again. Limiting Herald of Orange Light. This is like the first real hit to tier. Pretty much the only one, I guess, at all. Looking at the other cards, yeah, for sure. Everything else is like literally anti-tier. I'm happy about this. I think I'd rather just see it banned. I think we've seen this card at the heart of like too many crazy things. Of course, it was first used in Drytron, searchable off of Ava, and then I got limited, and people still played this card. And now it's played at 3, right? Because the fairies from your hand, you tribute the fairies, and then you get the mill 5. Off the negate, you get advantage. That's just a little too wild, and there's a few things I'd like to see, and they semi-limited. There's no, there's just one semi-limit to Recital Starling. That's cool for bird up players. I'm sure the deck's like much more playable now. You can also go into F-Zero, which is pretty cool. I have no complaints. I never played Lyralist Tri Brigade, but I hated what they did a couple of ban lists ago, where they just built this deck up, gave it a bunch of new support. It was meta for like a month, and then they just destroyed it off the ban list. It was unplayable afterwards. So now I think this helps bring that up like a significant amount, because I think the other rank 1 they're making was just bad. Instead, Recital gives you advantage. So we'll see how that ends up shaking out, if it makes a difference. Kind of excited to see that one. But, for the unlimits, we got Teller Knight. I don't know how to say this. Ptolemaeus. So this is the card if you've never seen this before. Basically, because it's old. I think it's been on the ban list for a long time now, I'm pretty sure. But it says once per chain, during either player's turn, you can attach 3 materials from this card, special summon from your extra deck, 1 XYZ monster that is 1 rank higher than this card except a number monster. By using this face-up card you control as XYZ material. This is treated as an XYZ summon. XYZ materials attached to this card also become XYZ materials summoned on the summon monster. You can also attach 7 to skip your opponent's turn, which of course is like highly unlikely. And I'm sure it's possible through like some sort of means in Yu-Gi-Oh, but you just wouldn't do it. Just be too much investment and probably not too consistent. Because you got to find funky ways to do it. You only got 5 zones, 7 materials. That doesn't really make sense. Not important, but the first effect was. And then during each player's end phase, you can attach 1 Stellar Knight card from your extra deck to this card as face-up material. which that is important, right? Because any rank 4 now makes this, because it's a generic 4. It doesn't even require light monsters. So basically, if you have any access to a rank 4 at the end phase, you do this, and then, you know, quick effect during your opponent's draw phase, you can go up into something like Stellar Knight can Stellar Diamond. This is one option. So this card says during your main phase 2, you can also XYZ summon this using a Stellar Knight XYZ you controls XYZ material. Oh, I guess you can just hard make it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But you can't make it turn 0 because there is no main phase 2 in turn 0. So really, you do have to use the end phase effect, quick effect during your opponent's turn. But more importantly, while this card is XYZ material, neither player can send cards from their deck to the graveyard. So this is like the beginning of the crusade that Konami is now putting on against Tier. Instead of hitting Tier, they are now hitting every other card that sort of maybe hits Tier. I'm going to explain that a little bit more. But neither player can send cards from the deck to the graveyard, and any card that is returns from the graveyard to the hand is banished instead. This is actually really good cyber support, low-key, because the new Firewall, the original bounces to the hand, and the new one bounces from the hand too. So kind of cool, I guess. During either player's turn, when an opponent's dark monster activates an effect, you can attach material from this card and negate the activation if you do destroy it. Literally, might as well say the anti-tier XYZ monster, right? They're darks. I think all of them are darks, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, they want to send cards to the graveyard. So this is their answer, and that answer also gets continued over here with unbanning of Dimensional Fissure, an unbanning of Macrocosmos, and an unbanning of Metaverse. Although Metaverse is just because Mystic Mind was banned. So Metaverse doesn't really have... Well, Metaverse can go into Hidden Valley. Not Hidden. Is that what it's called? The one that stops your opponent from moving cards from their graveyard. So I guess that there's 9 answers now. But here's the problem, and I've been really thinking about this. Dimensional Fissure is an answer. So that's a good place to start if you're playing some sort of deck like this. I mean, this really is just a boost to... I don't know. Is this a boost to Flu Under Ease? I'm not sure. Maybe it's something you side in. So they have like 6 outs to, you know, beating this deck. But the thing that I think is, like, they made this to be like, oh, this is the anti-tiered, you know, ban list. Other than Dimensional Fissure, which you can activate the first thing, Macrocosmos, like, the whole problem is that your opponent plays during your turn. That's the issue. So I was kind of disappointed not to see a limit to the field spell. I was kind of disappointed not to see Super Poly ban, because I hate that card with a burning passion. I think it's stupid. And I wanted to also see Haveness limited. And they did part of it, right? Limiting Herald means that there's a slightly less chance your opponent plays during your turn. And then it just comes down to, I think it's Merly. I think Merly is the one that special summons from hand when you activate a monster effect. I was hoping to see a limit to that one. Because the problem with Tearlament is not, like, it's good. Of course it's good. Meta decks are good. But the biggest issue is that it gets to the point where your opponent starts literally playing their turn during your turn. And there's, like, almost practically no difference other than setting trap cards. I feel like that's the only thing. And that's the problem. That's what makes the deck so good, is that you don't get to start. You don't get to even attempt to put up a board, you know, to kind of deal with it. And, like, Macrocosmos does not answer that at all. Dimensional Fissure does. This one's good. And then they also unlimited Tinky, which is kind of cool. Again, Bird Up is kind of like back. Way too wild what they were doing to Bird Up back in the day. So I guess having the rank 4 is cool, but again, that's not until the end phase. So does this really answer Tier at all? No. But at the same time, Tier is new. This should be expected. I guess they did, on some level, Herald is a pretty good, limit. I think most decks are playing it, by the way. There's this idea that, like, the good ones weren't. No, this card's insane. Like, it was, like, pretty much seen in the top deck list from what I've seen from a lot of competitive events like YCS. So I think that was pretty decent. The field spell is a little bit of a bummer. I think if they didn't want to do anything to the names, if you limit the field spell, you do a much better job. Instant Fusion, too. Like, why is that card... Like, yes, that hurts Tier, but, man, Tier's fine without Instant Fusion. I think we can all agree on that. So that kind of sucked. I think that I should have gone a little bit harsher, and they didn't have to do anything to the Tier cards, just the power cards that it used around it. But, you know, let me know what you guys think about this ban list in the comment section down below. I'm excited to kind of check out Teller Knights. That's, like, my main takeaway. I'm sure some people will just be using it, you know, for the free 4 to go into the 5. But I'm going to try to actually play Teller Knights and kind of see how that works out. But other than that, that's going to do it for today's video, and I'll see you guys next time.